I am now working with page 535 in my enVision workbook. It is my guided practice. I went ahead and highlighted some of my important parts, okay? It says Leah arranged triangular tiles in a pattern like the one shown. She used the rule, multiply the number of rows by itself to get the number of small triangles. How many small triangles would be in the pattern if there were 10 rows? Let's go ahead and look to make sure we understand the rule. I'm multiplying the number by itself. So one row, 1 times 1 is 1. So here I have 1 triangle. Now I want 2 rows. So 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4 triangles. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want 3 rows, I multiply 3 times 3 and I get 9. So if I want a 3-row of triangles, I would need 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I know how my rule makes sense. I'm going to complete the table. So they've filled in my first 3 rows, okay, just like they've shown me in my visual. So now I want 4 rows. Well, my rule is to multiply the number by itself, so 4 times 4, and I get 16. Now I want 5 rows. 5 times 5 is 25. So I have filled in my row. Now it says describe the pattern another way. Well, each time I add a row, the number of triangles grow or get bigger. This is called a growing pattern. So let's look at the number of triangles and the rows that are in each one. For 1 row, I have 1 triangle. For 2 rows, my first row has 1 triangle. My second row has 3 triangles. In my third row, I have 1 triangle in my first row. I have 3 triangles in my second row. And in my third row, I have 5 triangles. What is the relationship? Each row adds more triangles, but how many more do I add each time I add a row? So if I go from 1 to 3, I'm adding how many? 2. So 1 to 3, I'm adding 2. How many am I adding 3 to 5? 2 again. So that could mean that each row has 2 more triangles than the row above it, right? I'm growing with each row that I create. It asks me how many triangles would be in 10 rows. Okay, well, I go back to my rule that I multiply the number of rows by itself. So 10 rows, 10 times 10 is 100 triangles would be needed. Now I can scroll down and I can say, Alan built the towers shown using the rule. Each story has 2 blocks. So towers, so each tower, so each story, so the first floor, second floor, third floor, okay? How many blocks will a 10-story tower have? Okay? So if you see here, 1 story, right? 2 blocks. This is my first story and my second, so I need 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 3 stories, okay? I need 6. So it has filled in the first 3 for me, and now I have 4. I need 8 blocks if I want 4 stories. And I can even draw that. Here's my first story, my second story, third, fourth, 2, 4, 6, 8 blocks. Which means my fifth story, if I add 2 more on top, would be 10. So this is the rule, each story has 2 blocks. But what is another way to describe the pattern that is not described by the rule? So how can I take each story has 2 blocks and put it into different words? You can say the number of blocks is 2 times the number of stories. Okay, well, let's see if that works. The number of blocks is 2 times the number of stories. So 1 times 2, is that 2? Good, yep, that works out. 2 times 2, 4. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. So if I multiply the number of stories by 2, I get my number of blocks. So using that rule, and you can go ahead and even write your rule in here so that you remember it. How many blocks are in a 10-story tower? Well, remember, I'm multiplying my number of stories by 2 to get my total blocks. So if I have 10 stories and multiply it by 2, my total would be 20 blocks would be needed.